Welcome to Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And this week we have our first special guest, Johnny Brillantes, who also has a great podcast called The No Show Podcast. And Cameron and I were just on that recently talking about Batman, of course.
If you guys aren't tired of us talking about Batman yet, you can definitely go and check
listen to more of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us on there. That was great. So
I love, when I was a kid, I really loved when crossovers happened. Right. Like, if there was the dinosaurs in Family Matters world, you know what I mean? Just like...
Did that actually happen?
It should have.
It probably did at some point.
You know? Like Carl Winslow and the dad. Oh, man, that would have been like... It's basically that Whoopi Goldberg movie, right?
Oh,
Something Rex.
Oh, I was thinking of We're Back, which is the animated
which is
one.
Full animated, yeah.
Yeah, totally different thing.
I'm just thinking it took 4 lines for us to get off topic.
I know. It doesn't take long. It never takes long.
That's Johnny's magic.
Yeah, we're lots of tangents in this. But this week we're talking about Heart of Ice. So we're just doing a whole episode on Heart of Ice because it's a big episode. It's one of the most important, I'd say, in the whole series.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Yeah, and we all just rewatch it. It's absolutely fantastic. So just kind of real quick, a little bit of background on Mr. Freeze. So he originally appeared in Batman number 121 in 1956, but he was Mr. Zero, not Mr. Freeze. And he was kind of one of the joke villains. Like, this is something that's been reiterated a lot by like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini as they were talking about Heart of Ice, that he was a joke, that no one really took him seriously, and he was just some rogue scientist whose ice gun backfires and spills cryo shit all over him, and he becomes Mr. Zero. He became Mr. Freeze in the 60s TV show when he was played by, I had to write this down, George Sanders, Otto Preminger, and Eli Wallach.
Eli Wallach?
Yeah. What's Eli Wallach most famous for? I know that name, but I can't.
He's known mainly for his westerns. He did The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. He was the ugly of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, okay, that's right. For some reason, Westworld is coming to mind, and that's Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner.
I think it's just because Westworld just came back.
I know.
Yeah,
I haven't watched it yet. I'm really excited about it.
Here's the thing. Westworld, sorry. Westworld, funny thing, actually had all those guys in it. But Westworld, Yul Brynner was in it. He was wearing his costume that he kept from the set of Westworld. I'm sorry, Magnificent Seven. Yul Brynner was in Magnificent Seven. He used his costume from Westworld in Magnificent, he used his costume from Magnificent Seven in Westworld.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but after Mr. Freeze was played by Eli Wallach in the 60s TV show, he basically stayed the same until Heart of Ice, and Paul Dini and Bruce Timm were trying to figure out where to go with this character, how to make him less of a joke.
And then Arnold Schwarzenegger came and
totally did.
And then Dad punned the shit out of him.
Yeah. Oh God. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that at some point. The
Freeze puns. I actually counted and wrote down every Freeze pun in this episode.
There's still a few. They're not as cringeworthy.
I did a bunch of doodles of Mr. Freeze in my notes, and then I had one page where I drew a Schwarzenegger one, and I was like, no, I'm tearing him out. He's not.
He's quite terrible. So when they were going to do this episode, they were basically like, okay, how do we make him more than just a joke? And they look at this character who has no emotions. Like, well, someone doesn't have no emotions. That means they're just shutting it off. And so what triggered him closing off all his emotions, that's why they came up with the idea of the long lost wife, which is now his most famous trait, I'd say.
Right.
Up until the New 52, which I guess we can talk about at the end because I think they changed it around quite a bit. So, Cameron, start us off. What happens in the beginning of Heart of Ice?
Well, what I thought was really cool with this, kind of going even before the episode starts, is this is the first animated title card we have.
I noticed that too. Mm-hmm. That's so awesome.
It was it the snow coming down?
Yeah, the snowflakes coming down, which does a scene transition into the snow inside the snow globe.
Yeah, what I can't remember is from this point on, are they animated or are they still? I think most of them are still, right? Even for the rest of the series?
I think so.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out.
There might be a lot.
In due time.
So we see a ballerina inside a snow globe, and you hear voiceover of Mr. Freeze talking about how he's going to get his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
He brings the old Klingon proverb up.
He does.
There's a couple references to, at least I have one more reference to Star Trek in here
Really?
which I really enjoyed. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited because
it comes later.
Okay, I didn't notice that, so I'm excited about that.
So he's talking about getting his revenge. Then it jumps to, what does it jump to after that?
It's a news feed.
Oh,
What's the name of that news reporter?
Summer Gleason.
Summer Gleason.
talking about how it's, I didn't notice this till the second time watching, where she mentions it's the hottest August, because this whole time I thought it was actually winter.
Oh, yeah.
It's the hottest August of record in Gotham. And then there's another reporter who gets hit by a snowball. I enjoyed that.
Oh, of course.
And I think isn't it a reporter or is it a cop? And he's like, hey,
It's a
kids,
cop.
get out of
Yeah, it's a
here.
cop.
Yeah, so on the news feed, Summer's talking about hottest summer in history, but all these cold-related crimes are happening at GothCorp. And
It jumps to the Batcave after that.
yeah, I remember I have a note here about how efficient they are at doing really quick setups with these episodes. And a lot of them are done through like a news feed. It's usually Summer Gleason saying something like, oh, here's the crimes that are happening. Here's like the motif. In this case, I think she mentions a freezing gun, or that like a freezing gun is being used. And we also get a brief introduction to,
I think she just says cold-related crimes.
maybe, I have a note here, freeze gun, but we all know my
Oh, yeah,
notes.
yeah,
My
freezing gun, because I thought that was a weird way of phrasing it.
Okay, yeah, I would just assume my notes were untrustworthy as usual. But we also get a brief introduction to Ferris Boyle, and it just amazes me, like so many of these episodes, how quickly they set up the whole conflict really fast.
Especially with a rando, either philanthropist or a random mobster like Rupert Thorne, and not like the I want to say Corleone, but like
Carmine Falcone?
or any of those. It's always just a random other character, you know, and they do it super, super fast.
Well, you know what upset me about this character was how long it took me to realize that
Who the voice was?
No, I knew it was Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
How long it took me to realize that his name is Boyle and Freeze.
Yeah.
I didn't get that until like driving over
Shut
here.
the hell up. I just figured what?
Yeah.
God damn it.
They got those subtle name puns. We
Yeah.
got Poison Ivy and Thorn, and now we got Boyle and Freeze.
Oh my.
At least it's subtle.
Yeah.
So we'll give them more credit than Batman and Robin.
I thought of like festering boil, like it's a festering like spot on the face of Gotham or something.
Yeah. Did you guys find it almost a little bit distracting though that it was Mark Hamill, because he's still distinctly Mark Hamill. Like he's not the same as the Joker, but it's close-ish. Like there are moments.
I do and I don't. I have to empathize with non-nerds or non-comic book people.
Why would you ever do that?
Well, because we're all people.
You don't know
man.
our audience, Johnny.
We're all people, and we're all not judgy.
Like our parents, like it's our whole audience.
Our parents, or you know, the kids that will probably listen to this podcast when you guys have kids and be like, who, what, Mark Hamill. Hopefully, your kids will be like, oh, Luke Skywalker, yada yada.
Yeah, I am going to make my kids listen to my old podcast.
I mean, my son's name is going to be Luke Skywalker Brown.
That's of course.
Yeah, so they're going to know.
That last name just like zings off everything. I was saying that too about our engineer over here, man. Sometimes you just have names that zing. Mine doesn't. It just doesn't. Brown's one of the good ones. Just throwing it out there. But to empathize with them, Mark Hamill. Not that if you didn't know him, but he does such a good job as a voice actor that essentially what he can do is just like with an inflection of the Joker, you know, he can like really do it. Like John DiMaggio, Maurice LaMarche, they can all do variations of different things. Like Maurice LaMarche, I didn't know did the voice of Mr. Freeze in Arkham. Yep. And I was like, what? I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that too, actually. And I did find it interesting that Mark Hamill actually came to the production for this episode first. They reached out to him first to do Ferris Boyle, and he's like, oh, do you have any other villains that you haven't cast yet? And they said, no, we pretty much cast everyone. He's like, well, what about the Joker? Like, no, we haven't cast. And he told them, hey, if something changes, come to me. I would love to do this. Yeah. And so when they went to go recast it, they actually reached out to him. So it's weird because we're 14 episodes in, but this is actually Mark Hamill's entry point. He was Ferris Boyle before he was the Joker.
Yeah, because this was the third shown episode.
It was, yeah, but so now I'm like totally lost on like their production order, because even in the commentary for this episode, they refer to it as episode 14. It's like listed officially as episode 14, but it was the third one to air. So it's like clearly there's a production order, like official production order, a release order, and then some other weird like actual
because this episode even references two previous episodes.
It does?
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay.
So we're in the Batcave.
Yeah.
Batman is scrolling through using his super sci-fi computer.
The only one in Gotham.
The only computer in Gotham. And he has these wireframes of the devices stolen from GothCorp. And so he knows what Freeze is trying to create, and he knows the last component of this last warehouse. So he goes to meet Mr. Freeze, or kind of catch Mr. Freeze at this warehouse, where they have their first kind of face-off.
Yeah, I just have to say two things. One, I love that the cutaways of him pressing the buttons is just like button, switch, and then it all just animates together.
Yeah.
God bless the 90s and the simplification of like, this is what computers are. And then like Alfred comes up. I think this is the point in which Alfred comes up. I don't know if it's when they go back, but like Alfred comes up in an escalator.
That's later. I have it written down. Escalator in Batcave.
He does, yeah. I noticed that on a second viewing too. I'm like, wait, where the fuck did that come from?
Who installed that shit? But yeah, that's later.
I think the answer is Alfred, right? Didn't he have to put all the stuff in the Batcave?
I mean, shit.
Because they can't have contractors.
Yeah, you can't just have normal contractors come in there. So they're just, Alfred really,
like,
he can do everything, but the poor guy.
Or they get contracts, and then like Bruce Wayne sends money to the family of the contractor and be like, so we're done with this escalator. What do you think? And he's like, yeah. And he just shoves him down a cavern.
Oh, you know what? Who the contractors were?
Yeah.
It was the Graysons and the Drakes.
Oh, he's like,
There's just a pit at the bottom of the Batcave filled with dead Robin parents.
Yep.
and they're all like, they're all just skeletons with contractor clothes on them.
Oh, no wonder all the Robins hate Batman so much.
Yep.
But you're also saying that like they go to meet up Freeze. That car chase, good God, that car chase was rad. Like it has the typical Batmobile driving and then the rope to like try to hold on to a pole and then like make that turn thing. But
just like in the Tim Burton movie. It goes out of control. He shoots the cable off to slow down. Yeah,
and the Batmobile looks so glorious too. Like it's in the dark blues. Like, oh my God, I'm just saying, it's a good car chase.
It is a good car chase. And then they, so Freeze busts into the warehouse and starts loading up canisters. And then there's a fight, because there's always a fight.
But the best thing about this fight is how it ends, I gotta say.
With him covering himself with the cape and getting frozen over? Or the three Freeze puns that were in this scene.
Oh, Cameron, what were the
Let's hear those puns.
Oh my gosh. I had all just in one grouping. I think the worst one and also my favorite one is Batman beats up the first goon, points at Mr. Freeze and says freeze.
Oh yeah.
And he steps out of the shadow and that's Mr. Freeze.
That's Mr. Freeze to
And
you.
I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah.
I want to hear that in Schwarzenegger's voice.
I've always wondered about Mr. Freeze. So he's a doctor. Mm-hmm. What doctor is going to demote himself like that? Like if you're a doctor, you always int yourself as doctor.
You say Dr.
You always
Freeze.
say, yeah. So why did he go back to Mr.?
I think there's psychologically, I think there might be a level of
Two-Face going on?
Schizophrenic.
I think there might be, if I was a psychologist, a disassociative, I don't know. It's just, I think there might be a level of where he goes, when he has the transformation and this thing ails him in such a way that he goes, well, I'm no longer like, maybe it might be just like not a psychological, but like, just an ego thing where he's just like, I'm not a doctor. I'm disgraced. I can't call myself a doctor anymore. I'm not even, to a certain degree, he might not even feel human anymore. He might be like, I'm just.
Yeah, he sees himself as just this emotionless husk.
Yeah.
That is out for vengeance. His whole thing is a
personal vendetta.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Those are real answers. Like, I was just setting that up as a bit. But, well done, guys.
Sorry.
It was good. It's some real insight into the character.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of, obviously this came out much later, but I think the character V from V for Vendetta, I see a lot of connection between the two. I think it's just the V's.
The vendetta. When he says vendetta, you're like, oh, hey, well.
Yeah.
Remember.
What I did think was interesting is in this fight, obviously, there's a shitload of puns. Mm-hmm. But Freeze even makes a comment. It's like to Batman, it's like, oh, since you align yourself with my enemies, you leave me no choice but to fight you.
Right.
Where even right now, they're still trying to lay the groundwork of the fact that he is not necessarily reluctant, but at least a sympathetic villain. That he has an agenda and he kind of cares, kind of doesn't care about collateral damage.
Dude just has like really extreme PTSD.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that's a point that we mentioned in the very first episode. We said that the best episodes, it's not villain doing things to hurt Batman. which we've kind of seen in the Pitfall episodes. It's kind of been based around that, but it's villain has story. They're trying to follow through with story, and then Batman just kind of like puts a wrench in it.
Yeah, I rewatched the episode listening to the commentary from Timm and Paul Dini and Radomski, and they were saying that this became the template by which they did a lot of the other villains, where the villain has something against a third party that has nothing to do with Batman, and Batman's kind of just interfering in their schemes. I mean, we see not the exact same origin, but a similar style origin for the Riddler later on in the show.
If you're so smart, why aren't you the richest man ever?
Yeah, I really love those episodes. I love the Riddler episodes.
Yeah.
We'll get to those when we get to those.
So they have the fight. Batman's jumping around. Mr. Freeze freezes one of his goons named Johnny. Sorry, Johnny.
Hey, well, you can't leave Johnny.
Is his name Johnny?
It is.
Yes, it is. I was like,
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I had a Paps in my hand. I was like, one for Johnny.
Got to pour one out for the Johnnies. And then Mr. Freeze freezes Batman. He shrouds himself in his impenetrable cape.
His warm cape of warmness.
Yeah. I know it's fire. What is it? Fire resistant. That's that word.
Yeah.
I didn't know
wonder-
it was also like kind of cold resistant.
I don't know if it's like this in the comics, but I wonder if he goes to, because in my brain, the suit is always in like the big giant like case or whatever. But what if he has a whole bunch? What if he has a whole bunch of different bat suits, which I'm sure they did in the Silver Age, where it's like this bat suit does this and that bat suit does that, and Lego does that too. But like, I wonder if they all just look the same, and there's like a tiny little tag that just says this one will keep you warm. This one is a hang glider.
It's like in video games where like if it in
alternate
RPG,
skins.
yeah. Or not role playing game where it's just like the same item and just like a little like one, like this one's +3 strength instead of +2 strength.
So this was his +5 strength.
This was his +5 ice
warmth.
resistance.
This was his warmth one.
Yeah.
It's fleece on the
We
inside.
all know that Batman's just one big D&D nerd.
I mean, there is evidence in a very gray episode of how nerdy this guy really is.
So Batman saves Johnny, brings him back to the Batcave, blindfolds him, which is very finally like, because this is the second person he's brought back to the Batcave. First one was just a kid that got to run around. Not just the Batcave, but also Bruce, like
the mansion.
Also, Wayne Manor.
Yeah, I'm sure Bruce offered the same sort of hospitality to this random henchman too. You know, took him upstairs, gave him a spare room, had Alfred cook him a meal.
Alfred tried to bathe him.
Yeah, my whole
Alfred enjoyed it.
My thing is that it's like Les Mis, where he's just trying to steal the silverware and shit. He's like, "Holy shit, this place is great!" And then he comes back, and then there's a Monsignor who's like, that's just my concept of like being kind to criminals.
Yeah. So what I think is great about this episode is not only Batman has a villain, but Bruce has a villain, because Bruce is trying to fight Boyle at the same time as trying to fight Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
So he's in.
Oh, real quick though, we need to point out that when Bruce gets back from fighting Freeze, that he's developed a cold. He's got a bit of a sniffle going on.
Which, by the way,
one might say a Captain Cold.
Oh, hey.
God damn it!
I was trying to find a way. I wanted to mention him.
He's the funny thing is that I noticed that he sneezes in his cowl, and I'm like, ugh, how gross! Like, if you look at
because I guess it would cover his nose,
because it covers every single bat costume or bat cowl I've ever like put on my face. It goes from the tip of your nose to the top of your lip, so it covers up. It's always weird to wear a bat cowl, but like if you're sneezing in it, just like how gross is it underneath? It's just like, hold on, I can imagine, like, I mean, they're not going to animate this, but he has to like yank the nose off a little bit, blow his nose. It's so gross.
No, that's what Alfred has to do.
Yeah, exactly. Come here, sir. It's like your grandmother, which like, okay, and blow your nose, you know?
Yeah.
He's got a special tool in the belt just to go over the nose, sneeze, discard.
Well, no, he makes a point that there is no tissue compartment.
Oh, that's true.
Of all of the gadgets in that belt, you can't find room for tissue.
He just uses the end of his cape.
Two things that Bat Belt could use: tissues and some fucking locks, so his villains can stop taking his belt away from him.
Right. So we continue with Bruce. Batman back as Bruce has a meeting with Boyle, and Boyle has just won Humanitarian of the Year, which is very wrongfully given.
Yeah,
well, because doesn't two things happen in the Batcave at this point in which he? Oh no, does he get the knockout guess?
We get the chicken soup.
Yeah.
later.
Is that later or is it now?
Yeah, it's later.
Okay.
Because
No,
he has
because when he goes to
the gala.
Boyle's, Boyle's basically just proving what a total douchebag he is. That he doesn't care about his employees, and always like, what is like as soon as like the wage slaves start to complain, you got to put them in their place. And right at that moment, his secretary comes in. It's like, oh, here's your speech for your humanitarian award acceptance.
Yeah, so he has a gala the next day.
Or what does he say? What's that line? He's like, oh, I'm suddenly feeling very sick.
Oh, Bruce.
Yeah.
Is there a name? I was trying to figure this out because, so at that moment, Bruce is basically making a joke that only us as an audience really gets. Is there a specific name for that kind of joke? It was really bothering me because, it's not quite a meta joke. It's kind of fourth wall breaking, but
It's like a wing to the audience.
yeah, I feel like there should be an actual term for that. I just didn't know how to figure out what it was. I was hoping maybe you guys would know.
I'm sure there is.
I'm not a good enough writer to know the terminology
God damn
for
it!
what
What
that is.
use are you? Okay.
But during this conversation, so Bruce is talking to Boyle about all these break-ins because Boyle runs
Goth Corp.
Thank you. And it's another great
People's company.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. That's the slogan.
Yeah, Goth Corp, a people's company. And so we get to see again, Paul Dini is great at showing Bruce not only as the playboy but also as a detective. So he's getting all the information he can that Batman might not be able to get by himself.
Right, because he's asking Ferris like, "Oh, hey, there's all these things going on, these break-ins. Do anything about it?" And
I think it's like shareholders or like an ex-employee.
yeah, and Boyle alludes like, "Oh yeah, there's this one guy who got really pissed off, but he's dead, so we don't have to worry about it. So we just get an idea that there's someone out there, and we can assume it's Freeze. But we don't know any details yet of what happened."
That Ferris should run for president. He sounds like quite a guy.
Yeah, he would do fine. So then after that, we're at Freeze's hideout, right?
I think we're at the Batcave again.
No, I think there's a brief scene where they're at the hideout and they're loading stuff up onto the truck.
Getting ready.
Yeah, and I don't know because all I have in my notes here are Freeze's hideout, and then why does the whole place need to be called the Freeze is still in a suit? Because all the guys are wearing their
Parkas.
parkas.
Oh.
And also at a certain point, when does he start buying his people parka after he just was just like, leave him, fuck him, you know what I mean? But he's just like, well, I need you to load stuff. And maybe it's the materials that need to stay in cold.
It could be.
And then he's just like, here, let me give you a parka, load this thing. I can't stop. I can't keep on losing henchmen.
I like your theory that this is him offering the carrot when he's been using the stick on his henchmen. Okay, I'll leave you behind, but I'll buy you a nice down jacket.
Well, I'm going to bring up another comedian this week. There was someone who made a joke about the Batman henchmen and how they choose who they're going to go work for.
I don't think I've heard this one.
It's we'll post it on Timm Talk social media stuff.
Okay.
So we're at the Batcave.
Yeah.
He's preparing himself to go to this gala where Boyle's going to get his award. And then he gets the chicken soup, the only thing that can fight a cold.
What is this, knockout gas? It's just like, come on, Batman, take it easy with all the weapons.
You've been hit with knockout gas in half of the episodes we've watched so far. You know what it looks like.
It doesn't look like a thermos that says, Rubbermaid on it. Okay.
So then we jump to the gala. Mm-hmm. We see Bruce in yet another disguise. Does this one have a name?
No disguise. It's just he's just
a blonde security officer.
Yeah.
I love this shit. Are you guys counting all of the costumes that he's wearing, all the disguises that he has?
We haven't been counting them, but
there's three.
Yeah, we've acknowledged them when they happen. Yeah, there's Gaff Morgan, and then there was the drunk from It's Never Too Late, and now this.
Can you please keep account of how many different
Yeah, we can. Because we talked about in the Forgotten that he has a closet just filled with costumes, and that he actually has whole personas and name tags written along them.
I wonder if Thomas Wayne was just took him to some field trippy kind of thing where it's I'm the master of disguise, and Bruce as a kid is just I want to dress up and play.
I'm saying Batman's a D&D fan.
Just cosplay, dude.
Yeah,
he was a cosplay as a kid,
Yeah.
But can I also say something about the security guard? Is that when he's like, "Hey, take a break, whatever," he has a whole voice and everything. The guy that he's bumping out of the job, he's just so jauntily walking away from his job.
Oh, he's excited. He gets to go to the party and basically drink on the job. He's super excited.
I gotta get out of here,
Sorry, that rolling back a second. That's where it does the flashback to the past two episodes. So Boyle mentions there was an ex-employee who died in an explosion. Batman is shifting through news headlines, and I paused to check these, and it's he goes through 2, and then it's the third one is talking about Victor Freeze's death.
Okay.
And the first one is a headline about the fundraiser for Gotham University.
Oh, from Never Fear.
And the second one is about the groundbreaking for the mental hospital,
the prison.
the penitentiary.
Oh,
Is it Blackgate or is it?
I don't remember. It's from Pretty Poison, but I don't remember what the name of the actual prison was. We didn't then. We still don't now.
We'll find the answer someday.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, so I think I thought that was
cool.
a really.
I didn't notice that.
I
That's
specifically
awesome.
went back and paused just to see those two, and I was not disappointed.
Man, they're very clever. These guys get the little jokes in there. So Bruce is at GothCorp. He goes into the files. And again, another brilliant piece of just purely visual storytelling.
Top secret.
Yeah, he grabs a top secret file. The top photo is of Nora, who looks like the dancer from Freeze's snow globe thing in the beginning. The second picture is Freeze and Nora getting married. The third one is a document saying that she has a terminal disease. And the last one is a picture of the cryotube. And so, just boom there. In 4 quick photos, 5 you count the top secret cover, they've established all the connections. So
one of the things I wanted to notice about that, did a couple days ago memory serve me correct in both Nora and Victor are holding hands, but so far apart, they're not holding each other close in that photo.
I don't remember. Maybe. Yeah.
Do you remember if they're holding each other close or I think they're holding hands, but far apart from each other?
That might be.
So that I mean, not to break it down, but what happened? Why aren't they
I don't know. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
What I did notice is I never knew how they spelled freeze.
Oh yeah,
Fries.
It's
Yeah.
fries.
I had no idea.
I'm not sure what my point was.
I don't know where I'm going with that. I just want to point out I didn't know how that's how
I
they
was
spelled
doing
it.
a little bit more research and I saw a Adult Swim Robot Chicken where all the Freeze characters come to one museum to steal the same jewel or something, and it's got Captain Cold, it's got freaking Victor Freeze, it's got everybody. I suggest looking at that.
Who are the two from Young Justice?
It's Captain Cold, Icicle.
Icicle Jr. Yeah, Icicle and Icicle Jr.
Yeah. Trevor, do you know who the other Freeze villains are?
Mr. Freeze for Batman and Robin.
Cap Cold,
Icicle
Flash.
Jr. for Green Arrow and Speedy.
Mm-hmm.
Killer Frost.
Oh yeah, we probably missed Killer Frost.
For
Yeah.
Aquaman and Aqualad. Yeah, because it's Captain Cold for Wally and Barry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Trevor. This is why I love having another DC aficionado in the room to answer these questions when we forget. It's fucking fantastic.
Spot on.
That's great.
So they go through the file, and at the very bottom, there's a wonderful VHS.
Yes.
And
Okay.
So the VHS is Victor. It's Victor Freeze. It starts off with his documenting his work.
Yes.
About this cryotube will revolutionize medicine. It's going to save my wife, who's terminally ill. And apparently, he can afford the best cameraman because Did you notice?
Okay, because I was just gonna say
many angles.
yes.
And
I would say 2 things about that. One, you have an entire VHS in a file. She's that's so obtuse to put in a file cabinet.
Well, Batman also somehow stashes it on his bat belt later on because he just pulls it out at the end of the episode.
I imagine, so in production, I imagine that you would keep your call sheet and all this stuff and you fold it in the thirds and then you kind of just put on. I've seen a lot of people just kind of stick it underneath their belt. So if Batman's doing that, he must have some kind of attachment on the back because I don't know if it's this episode. I think it might be this episode. Oh yeah, it is with the thermos. Just how you have something clunky on you. How are you ninja-ing and Batmaning all over the place?
Yeah, I think he's got a Mary Poppins bat belt is what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. There's a whole sofa in there.
Yeah. But yeah, so on the VHS, yeah, I know where we're going with this. Yeah, all the different angles, right?
Yeah, but it's the very tragic story of Freeze is trying to heal his wife, and Boyle comes in with security. You find out that Freeze has been doing this kind of without the company knowing, and he's apparently spent $3 million in 2 weeks, which that's kind of impressive.
That's an impressive burn right there.
Would you say that Ferris Boyle needs to chill out?
No,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I think he
would
needs
say
to just learn to keep his cool.
Talk about a real cold case, huh?
Normally I'm really good at coming up with puns, and I just can't right now. I'm making that groaning sound because I can't contribute.
What
It makes me sad.
what's his favorite part of the cake? The frosting.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the icing.
Oh, there you go.
And it's back.
That one,
But yeah, so on the commentary, this is something that Bruce Timm was talking about too, that they were like rushing through this episode. And so he was basically just approving things as they came in. And after it got into the edit phase, like, oh shit, like Freeze has like how many cameras does he have set up in his own lab? He's
on
like
his CCTV.
Yeah, he's got all these technicians, and someone went to the great effort of like editing it very conveniently for him.
Yeah.
What if there's a security guard who works at GothCorp who's just like, these stories need to be told. Like he's just like editing all the bad footage and shit that goes down at the People's Company.
Yeah, he's just editing together all of the criminal activities of his CEO, just not telling anyone about it.
Also, that camera editor or the cameraman would have died in the explosion as well. You don't see him get away.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
This editor's basically like the Cole Reese from Dark Knight, where he's just like, he's going to hold like Gotham Corp up for ransom.
Yeah, so Batman watches it. Oh, yeah, you didn't get a chance to finish talking about the video. Yeah.
Boyle comes in with goons. They're like, we're going to shut it down. Like, if you turn it off, you'll kill my wife. And like, well, you shouldn't have put her in it.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. $3 million.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are sympathetic towards Boyle, right? That's what was the point of this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And as the security guards kind of charge towards the machine, Mr. Freeze, or Dr. Freeze at this point, casually just steals the gun from the security guard, points it at Boyle. And Boyle's like, all right, let's calm down.
Does he like, monster?
No, he just starts kind of yelling at him. Like, this is one of those characters where like his wife is his only connection
to the world.
Yeah. And even after her supposed death, like that's still his only connection to reality.
Isn't it that like a little bit of the backstory from like one of the comics is that when he was a kid, he would freeze things to sort of keep them alive. Like if you liked a butterfly or something pretty, he froze them to keep them instead of like a kid keeping a scrapbook. He just
I think so. That was one of the bits of background that I read about him. Yeah, which is really
weird.
Yeah, really dark and bizarre.
So as he has the gun pointed towards Boyle, Boyle's trying to calm him down. And when he drops the gun for a second, Boyle kicks him in the chest, falls in all the chemicals, explosion. Mr. Freeze is born, and he believes Nora is dead.
It's a lot of trauma, baby.
Yeah. And Boyle believes the Freeze is dead, right?
Yeah, he thinks nothing could have survived that explosion.
Did he just like never go back to that lab or wonder what happened?
Didn't see the body?
What happened to the body? Yeah.
So coming up next, like Batman reacts, Mr. Freeze is behind him, goes black, and he wakes up inside what we assume is Freeze's lair. When Batman escapes and he comes out, he's at the building. So I think his lair is still that room.
I noticed that too. Yeah, because so he goes into he wakes up in the cave, and what is clearly a reference to Empire Strikes Back is like frozen to the ceiling, hanging up there. I don't think Freeze says too much other than like, I'm going to go freeze this asshole.
I think he has another pun. Hold on.
I'm going to go freeze this asshole.
I'm glad glad you kept track of the puns.
Mr. Freeze is the ultimate dad on a vacation.
All who stand in my way feel the icy touch of death. I think that's later. Okay. But we're just going to drop that one in right now.
Okay, yeah. And so, but you're right. So Freeze drives his massive freezing cannon over to the front of GothCorp and turns it on and starts freezing the street. And you're absolutely right. Like Batman pops out of the lair.
So I guess he just drives around the corner.
Yeah, it must be around the block because like the alley where Batman pops into freezes over.
Yeah.
That thing can only react so fast. So he's got to be within a block.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is the part, it'd be better to be a block away. So you're not like at the site. You know what I mean?
But you'd think, is that a genius place to have your hideout? Or is it the worst place ever to have your hideout?
The best what's that phrase? Or is like the best hiding places in plain sight?
I guess so.
You know?
Yeah, but
when he drops off, one of my favorite things is when he drops off the car. Doesn't he like talk to the valet?
No, the valet's like asks for the keys.
Yeah, and he's like,
he just stares at him, and the valet runs away.
Can I parka this here?
Yeah, just.
No. Oh, but what I did appreciate with the goons at this point is they have the Captain Cold jackets on.
They do, yeah.
I thought that was a nice nod.
Freeze was nice enough to buy them some comfy jackets. The giant freeze cannon goes off. Batman shows up. Fighting ensues.
Finally, he doesn't get attacked by the person standing directly behind him.
Yep.
After 14 episodes, guys, Batman
literally
finally
does
learned. He does the behind
He's putting
the
his
back
belt
punch.
back on, and he does the thing that he did in '89 Batman, which when it happened the first time, I like literally as a kid cheered. I was just like, "Boom! He did the thing! I love it!"
Yeah, it's pretty great. So then, Freeze has a cool moment where he like cracks open a fire hydrant and fires his gun
so rad.
into the spray
The
to
coolest
take him up
moment
into the building.
I think of the show so far.
I want to know if there were moments where Freeze was practicing that to be like, okay, the water must go at this angle in order for me to like, and him failing a bunch of times.
He did it very smoothly. That would take a little bit of work.
Yeah.
And then so he goes up in the building. Another fight ensues. I feel like this is a great pun moment, so I'm gonna let you take it from here.
He
Cam's like, I got it.
He runs into Boyle and he tells him the cold eyes of vengeance are upon you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we
The
go.
gold eyes. Of
Nailed it.
vengeance. I don't know why I made him a little Morgan Freeman-y. What else you got there?
Well, so they're getting into a fight, and Freeze reveals that his suit also gives him strength, so he overwhelms Batman, and he's holding him there.
Oh, so sorry. Before that, really fast. So he breaks into the gala party, starts to freeze Boyle, and we saw before that like he can freeze people instantly, but this one is a very slow torture.
Like he has to see him.
He has to see him in pain. Yeah.
Being a real dick about it.
So then,
Villain it up, man.
Yeah. So Boyle is begging for his life, and he says, "In my
Where
nightmares,
were these words? Yeah,
in my nightmares, I see your face in the same pain as my wife." Or something
Very poetic.
Yeah.
He says something like,
something very dark.
"Where were these words of mercy?" Or no, doesn't he say like, "Please have mercy"? And he's just like, "Mercy was when my wife bada bada bada." Where were these words and shit like that?
Yeah, I think bada 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 is Mr. Freeze's famous slogan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So then Batman shows up, tries to stop him. We learn that the suit doesn't only keep him at sub-zero temperatures, but it also gives him triple the strength. And this is the other Star Trek reference, which is very, very minute. Mr. Freeze lifts up Batman, and Batman like punches the helmet once, and then does the Shatner chop on his neck.
Okay, yeah. I was like, what Star Trek reference did I not get? And I guess, he does kind of give him a little bit of a hi-ya. Yeah. Yeah, that does a lot of work. But how does Batman save the day, Cameron? What beautiful thing does he use?
He uses the one and only device that Batman carries with him at all times, pulls out the canister of chicken noodle soup, and smashes it upon Mr. Freeze's helmet. And I guess, because I was thinking about it, like, Batman was like full force punching that thing and it wasn't breaking. So I guess it was the temperature.
The extra heat.
Yeah. It was just like because glass like explodes when it's cooled or when it's heated and then cooled really quickly.
Because you notice also that when they animate his dome, sometimes they'll have that layer of white.
Oh, yeah. That was a cool thing I picked up on the commentary as well, that originally it was just supposed to be like an outline. And I guess the animation studio went above and beyond, and they actually like airbrushed every single frame to give it that frosted look, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's the heat and force of the thermos smashing the helmet.
That's what I just assumed, because the thermos breaks first.
No, the thermos doesn't break, because I thought it did on second viewing. I realized it doesn't, but it cracks open and spills the soup.
Okay.
Yeah, that is some hot fucking soup.
How did it stay so hot? What a great thermos.
Yeah, Alfred's got some serious kitchenware. Well, it's actually probably like a Wayne Tech engineered thermos.
For all of his soup-related needs.
What if it's, okay, I'm still thinking about this thermos. What if it's the belt? Like the belt is horizontal, right? And then there's just a magnet alongside one of the belts. So it's like a fanny pack where it's just like on the back. Like here's the canister. Like here's the belt. My arm's a belt. And then here's the...
Yeah.
It's just like that.
There's a great visual presentation here going on for this audio medium. But yeah, I get...
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know.
There's got to be a magnet or something, this Wayne Tech thermos.
I like the idea that he's got some sort of like kangaroo pouch on his back, but it's probably not it.
Yeah. So Freeze is defeated. It cuts to... Or then we see that Batman has the tape from before, so he doesn't just... Or no, Freeze has a line where he's like, it has to be vengeance, and Batman's like, no, it has to be justice, and he pulls out the tape.
Gives it to Summer Gleason.
Yeah. So both Boyle and Freeze are arrested, put in prison, and then it ends on a shot of Mr. Freeze. Similar to the shot we opened with, it ends with Mr. Freeze holding the snow globe ballerina, and very deep, sad words. He's like, someplace... I dream of the of the place where where a warm hand is waiting for mine.
Oh,
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Patton Emmy speech, which was really great. He was so great. He's like, my daughter's waiting for me at home, and hopefully my wife is waiting for me somewhere else. I'm like, so good.
Yeah, no, it's a nice little way to end the episode. This like really touching moment. I guess when Paul Dini sat down to write this, he actually had that moment in mind first. Like the most like emotionally provocative thing they could do was have Freeze sitting there by himself crying at the end, and they kind of work backwards from there and figure out what would get him into that spot. And to be fair, it paid off because this won an Emmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 93 won an Emmy for Best Writing for Paul Dini. Not his, I don't know if this is first, but definitely not his last. I think he's got quite a few of them at this point.
Probably. But this is also the first team up of Bruce Timm directing.
Yeah.
And Paul Dini writing. And you see just the powerhouse they are together.
Yeah. No, they're absolutely incredible. And it's such a damn good episode. And clearly, like, this became the default origin for Freeze from this point on.
They retconned it, like, pretty much after this, right?
Yeah. The comics immediately went in, retconned it, and that's, the origin he had from that point on. Obviously, it's this episode, the resurgence of Freeze as a popular villain, obviously resulted in him being in Batman and Robin, which, although there's so many things terrible about that movie, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is just ridiculous in it, in some ways, I mean, at least they did a faithful version of Freeze's story. Like, they made him sympathetic. He was a villain with a purpose of sorts. He was still crazy. I don't know why Freeze in the City was supposed to help him achieve anything, but regardless.
I don't know. It's the same reason that a scientist is also a bodybuilder.
That's absolutely true. You know what?
Dolph Lundgren, dude.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because he has a chemical engineering PhD or something. Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, clearly they should have just gotten Dolph instead. Yeah, but I mean, so that was Freeze's origin for a long time, and then I haven't really been reading in the New 52. It doesn't interest me. It seems confusing, but I guess in the New 52, they changed it so that it wasn't his wife. That I guess Nora was like some woman who had a. Do you know?
I don't know exactly, but I do know that it's Greg Capullo who does the art.
Okay,
and he's like, does he stalk her or like what is it?
I guess she was like born in 1943 and got a disease at age 23 and went into cryostasis. Freeze, when he was studying, wrote his doctorate on her, became her like cryotechnician, fell in love with her, and this is all at Wayne Enterprises. And Bruce found out, went to go shut it down. I guess Freeze threw a chair at Bruce, who dodged it, and then the chair cracked a cryotube, and he became Mr. Freeze. So. Oh, and apparently when he was a kid, he became obsessed with coal because his mom fell into a frozen lake, but got cold but didn't die, but it left her in permanent pain, and so he pushed her into another lake later on to kill her.
I like this origin.
I know. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you guys. Like, why do you think they did that? Because it really undermines him as a character, makes him less interesting. He just becomes a general weird, creepy psychopath
just
rather
like
than someone
evil.
sympathetic.
The best thing about what this new origin story does is that it makes us examine like how we feel about good people being forced to do bad things, or not forced to do bad things, but essentially choosing an extreme reaction to something that like PTSD or something that bothers them. And the best thing about Batman, I think, and personally why I love Batman so much, is that it's how he deals with his trauma. It's like, yeah, he could do, and he usually does it, a bunch of other things, like help fund the comps or help be a philanthropist and all that kind of stuff. But like, is Batmaning around the city essentially is good for anyone or anything? Maybe not. But like, he's just dealing with it and doing the best to aid others in this, versus every other Rogues Gallery villain just doing another extreme thing, but at the expense of everyone else. And this is the first time that I think like Mr. Freeze is the first kind of person is just like, you see why. You see what drove this man to this extreme. And it's a super extreme, but you see why.
Yeah, I mean, Freeze becomes a reflection of Bruce in that same sort of way. It's like something tragic happens in his backstory, extreme reaction to it, just kind of the wrong reaction. I don't know why they changed the origin. Seems like kind of a waste.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's so interesting also in this episode when he sees the video. It's another, I relate back to Two-Face episode. It's another person he didn't save, and it's another time he saw. It's another time he saw a man turn into the monster.
Yeah.
Like there are very few times we see that transformation. We've seen it twice now.
But then there's also like Bruce feeling guilt for not being able to save things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like I said, it's another person that he couldn't save. And also with the end of the episode, you also see Mr. Freeze crying, even though he mentioned before that, I have no emotion, I cannot cry.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very powerful moment because it's Victor. I'm going to differentiate Victor and then Mr. Freeze.
You have to tell him freeze and freeze and just
Call him fries.
Fries and freeze.
Yeah.
Call him extra large fries.
Victor is still in there, similar to when Harvey was talking to
Big Bad Harv.
I still can't remember her name. His
Grace?
fiance, Grace.
And you
God,
really
damn it.
struggle with
I
that.
still don't know why I want to say Sarah.
I don't know.
When he's talking to Grace, like there's that moment where she's getting through to Harvey and not to Two-Face. And we had that same moment at the end of this episode where Victor is talking to the ballerina, to the snow globe, and it's not Mr. Freeze. We don't see Freeze. We see Victor again. And so this is one of the few characters where they haven't fully transformed. I think that's a very interesting kind of dynamic.
Here's one thing. He's talking to this object that has really nothing to do with was his wife a ballerina? Like,
Well, it kind of resembles her.
well, kind of resembles her, but it's not. Did what I want to know is did it actually have anything to do with their marriage, or is he just associating this with her just because it looks like her? Was this a gift from her? Like, where's the psychological business in that?
I think part of it is he has the line, this is how I envision. This is how I remember you, shrouded in winter forever. And that's kind of what a snow globe is. It's just permanent winter. And so I think just the ballerina was like, there's a female figure in the snow globe. That's my wife now.
This is how I will always. Yeah, let's just love his delivery on stuff.
Yeah,
too.
and I know we get more information about her, I think, as the episodes go on. Because
because we learn that she's not dead later on.
Yeah, because it's
spoilers.
left. We assume she's dead in this,
right?
But we learn later on that she's not. I mean, because he becomes he has a few other just standalone episodes. There's the whole Sub-Zero movie.
That I gotta watch.
Yeah, it's okay. Unfortunately, it has the version of Batgirl with a super annoying voice in it. But then I really love his appearance too in the new Batman Adventures, and again in Batman Beyond. And when we think about that, is you're talking about how at the end of this episode, he's arguably the most human of all the Batman villains we've seen so far.
Yeah,
and I think by the time we get to his last appearance in the whole Timm-verse in Batman Beyond, he's one with like the least humanity left. That he's not only just a tragic figure before we're introduced to him, but he continues to be a tragic figure all the way through. Whereas I feel like Two-Face, his origin's tragic, but then from that point on, he's just another villain.
Well, you're mentioning Victor and like his tears and stuff. It's just to a certain point, like his whole thing to go after Boyle is to make him feel the pain that he doesn't have, or the pain what it's like. Because he can't feel anymore. So his whole mission is to make someone else feel the pain or, what have you. He has to see him tortured. He has to see Boyle tortured.
Yeah.
He has to cool him down.
So give him the cold shoulder.
Give him the cold shoulder.
God. So disappointed in myself. I can't come up with anything good.
Oh, and another, from the art standpoint, this was a huge thing for me that I didn't notice until the very end. Paul Dini and Bruce Timm did an amazing job about keeping it a very cool color palette. So the entire episode, you only see, when it's Batman and Mr. Freeze, you only see shades of blue and cooler colors, except for two things. The deep red of his eyes and the pink dress of the ballerina.
Oh.
And I thought that was
really cool. Yeah, I hadn't
and
really
even
thought about
Boyle has those piercing blue eyes.
Yeah.
And I think he's the only character that has colored eyes.
So far.
Oh, he might be.
Yeah.
Or at all.
So I thought, because that distracted me when I first saw him, because that's all I could look at was like, why do you have Superman's eyes?
Yeah, I did not notice that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And then another less fun, this was driving me crazy. I have it written in all caps because it was like driving me crazy. I was sitting in my apartment for a good 30 minutes trying to figure out where that sound effect came from of the freeze gun.
Wang. Yeah, it's like a...
Do you know what it's from?
No, but it was super rad, and I really do want to know.
There was a 12-episode series from the 90s, started in 1993, called Double Dragon. And
no.
I watched the first two episodes over and over and over again as a kid. I only had the first two episodes for some reason, and that's the noise that makes when they're transforming.
No.
Yes.
No shit.
I like screamed in my apartment when I found that connection because I loved that show, and it was literally driving me crazy trying to figure out where I'd heard it before from. And so I listened to the theme song before, and it brought back some good memories, guys.
Oh god, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, a fantastic episode. I mean, clearly it's always considered one of the best on a lot of lists.
Yeah.
It's the top episode. I can't say it's personally one of my favorites, but I mean, it's hard not to appreciate.
This is like one of my. This is when I heard you guys were doing this podcast. I was like, I have to get in on this episode. There's so many episodes that I feel like I have so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I dig this so much, or Mr. Freeze as a villain, is that maybe also Batman, because I like how this is also pre-Robin. Not that I don't like Robin, but the whole pre-Robin, the whole loner thing. As an only child, I super identify with, I'm on my mission, I got to do my thing, it's just me. And especially for Nora and Freeze, I don't know, man. I just dig the idea that this guy was awkward and he had a weirdly isolated life.
Damn it.
Okay. And then Nora's the one that kind of makes him sort of feel like an actual person and
makes him feel warm inside.
That he feel warm inside, that he like deserves love and all that shit. And then he has these 4 terrible traumas that are basic, or 3 or 4 traumas that rip him away from finally having that feeling. And so if I was an actor, I'd be like, boom, done. I got my homework. I'm ready to go, you know? But again, like,
are you telling me that Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't fully adapt into those 4 traumatic incidences to create his character?
Maybe not.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Well,
I barely even knew it was Arnold's. You know, he just disappeared into the role.
yeah.
But I mean, I think that basically wraps it up for the episode. So we're doing a new little segment here at the end, where we talk about like something cool we found out through the week. So
cool?
a book,
Something chill.
Fuck. Yes. Something cool we found the week. So a book, a podcast, a movie. I think we're going to call it Bat Plug.
Sounds too close to Bat Plug.
That's why.
All right.
I can see Cameron's not excited about that. It might change, but it doesn't always have to be something Batman related. This week, actually, for me, it is Batman related because a while ago I picked up Dark Knight, which is the autobiographical comic from Paul Dini.
Okay.
About the time that he was mugged on the streets of LA and his recovery. So I only kind of just started. I've only got the point where he actually gets mugged, but the beginning of it at least is kind of his childhood and how he fell in love with Batman as a character, and even little bits and pieces about the making of the series, all done in comic form. So it's really, really good. I recommend checking it out.
Oh, am I going? Gosh.
It's fine, Cameron. You can just pull your bat plug out of your ass and come up with something on the spot.
Oh, man, this bat plug is really, really shifting on my insides.
It's really up in there.
I guess, I plowed through all of Luke Cage this weekend.
Worth watching?
I enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah.
I still think Jessica Jones is the best so far.
But even Daredevil?
Yeah, I like Jessica Jones more. And I want to say for people that really enjoyed Luke Cage and you kind of want more of that world, I highly recommend The Get Down. It's another Netflix original series that was kind of overshadowed because it came out a week after Stranger Things.
Oh, poor Get Down.
I know, but it's set up in the same kind of world. It's 1970s Bronx, whereas this is current day Harlem. And The Get Down is not about superheroes. It's about the birth of the hip hop movement. And it's really cool. It's something that I never thought I'd say about any medium ever, but Jaden Smith is the greatest actor in this show. And I know that like a lot that'll turn off a lot of people, but he like watched the show and he is amazing. Like you see that he is Will Smith's son in the show. He knocks it out of the park.
Do you think he upped or reduced his level of bath salt intake on a daily basis to get that kind of performance? Like, do you think he was higher than normal or he had come down?
Well, so that's the thing with his character in the show is he plays like the person we see on Twitter. Okay. He's very like everything he says is
hyperbole.
Like,
Are you sure he didn't just wander onto the shoot and they're like, well, people know him, let's just film him and incorporate him?
Everyone,
see what happens.
Everyone, I've been pushing to Get Down for a while. I really want everyone to go watch it.
I will go check it out, but you can't throw out Jaden Smith and not.
I know. I guess
it's like Will's like, let them film, son, and he's like, you just don't understand.
Yeah, Luke Cage, great. Yeah, Oh, Luke Cage is good.
Okay.
Get Down, awesome.
All right, go check out the Get Down. And Johnny, what about you?
I have a couple cool things to push here. First of all, I did a lot of my homework listening to the Arkham Sessions, which is a friend of a friend's podcast. She's an actual clinical psychologist who basically is, I think, just pulling different episodes as she goes, breaking down psychological analysis of like the Joker and Harley and yada, yada, yada. So she's super, super intuitive. I highly recommend listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I listened to the Mr. Freeze one before here.
Yeah. So you're like, Johnny's saying this line out here. No. But there's that. And then there's also, just at a random non-Batman note, I was at Conan the other day and I got to see ZZ Top perform.
Oh, nice.
And it was amazing because I could barely enjoy it because of the loudness and the joy that was on my face. Like I was smiling during the whole thing. Like they came out and there was like a big hot rod right next to them. They had the full on beards and everything. And at the end when Conan was saying goodbye to them, like they brought a puppy on stage. We're like, no, I don't know if this puppy
pull it out of their beard.
So they just
I don't know where it came from. I mean, shit. I mean, it was the coolest thing. It's like a puppy, ZZ Top, and a hot rod. I'm just like, this is everything. I full on wanted them to do like the guitar spin thing and then launch into the Back to the Future. Oh, dude, it would have been so rad.
That's awesome. I mean, any excuse to listen to ZZ Top. I generally hate country music, but ZZ Top is an exception.
I think they're like,
consider them country.
I think they're like
kind of.
I think it's like they listen to it in the country, like in the middle America, but like it's also just fucking rock and roll, man.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. I mean,
so
sharp dressed man. It's like the motto I live by. Yeah. But I think that just about wraps it up. So thank you to Trevor Reese, who's down here as our audio engineer. He has an awesome podcast called The Podcast of Two Worlds, all about The Flash. And now that The Flash is back on TV, it's even better.
Yay!
Yeah, so go give that a listen. We're down here at the podcast booth at the Nerdist School. It's where we record every week, so check out nerdistschool.com. And Johnny, where can we find you?
You can find me a lot of places that I wrote down and will read to you. One, I'm on Instagram a lot, so I'm there as Paisano Guy, P as in Paul, ISANOGUY, Paisano Guy. We also have a No Show Podcast Instagram at No Show Podcast. We ask also that you check out our Facebook as well. And I'm kicking back up my Paisano pictures, something I started back in 2009, which is basically just quirky little quick videos of superhero stuff. I've got a Daredevil one on the way. I just did a Jim Gordon one. But yeah, check him out.
Cool. Wow, 2009. I mean, that's Cameron was still in high school, right?
Oh yeah, dude.
I was actually.
And Cameron, where can we find you?
You can find me everywhere at Cameron Dexter.
And I am at Lordifer on everything. And the podcast itself, we're at Tim Talk Pod on Twitter and Instagram at timtalkpod@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, so go check it out. And I think that does it. Johnny, thank you so much for being here today with us to talk about Heart of Ice.
You're so welcome, first of all. And thank you so much for having me. I really, really hope that I can come on for other ones because this show means a lot to me.
Well, we have a lot of episodes, so we always want more guests.
14 down and 600 to go.
Shitload to go.
There we go.
All right, so next week, Cat in the Claw, parts 1 and 2.
Yeah. All right, another two-parter.
Yeah, it'd be exciting. So thanks, everyone, for taking a listen.
Me, yeah.
Keep it cool.
Fuck you.